feet. Keep me grounded as I reach higher than I see. Is there something there for me?
Hello everyone, it's Sky here and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. So today we are going to be doing part 2 of our color along. So if you haven't watched part 1 already, I highly recommend you go do that because we made a pretty good start on our page. We are working out of Hannah Lynn's Enchanted Faces, and the page that we are working on is Monica. So in part 1 we kind of did the sky in the background and then her skin. I'm super excited. We're going to be doing her hair, and I finally picked out a combination. I'm still unsure of the feathers. I'm still leaning towards blue, but we'll see. Her hair for sure though is going to be brown. I just had kind of a hard time choosing between light or dark brown. So I was flipping through my color combination book and I found this one, a combination that I got from Deanna R. And I really like this one. It's kind of both light and brown. It's brown. It's kind of both light and dark brown though. I think either instead of the black or as well as the black, we're going to be using dark umber as well because I just love that color. It's very rich and earthy, and it's definitely like one of my favorite browns. So we're gonna either replace the black with that or add it in alongside the black. We'll kind of see. We'll start on a section and kind of see what we think needs to be done. I was kind of playing with the idea of giving her kind of like streaky highlights, but I'm not sure if I want to do that. I don't think so, just because her hair is a little bit complex and I don't usually do highlights too much. So I think I would want to go with like a less complex page to kind of practice that. And I don't mean like streaks, but I mean like actual like highlights. So like two-toned hair colors, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. Okay, let's get started. So I have the colors beside me. I think that's all we're going to do in this part is the hair. So once that's done, this part will pretty much be over. We can kind of at the end see how everything is and kind of talk a little bit more about what we might do with it. But yeah, for now, I think that's all we're going to do. Playing with the idea of zooming in or just leaving it like this and then trying to edit a little bit of the video. The only thing is the videos are quite long and I don't have the time to sit and edit through all of them. For those of you that have attempted to make YouTube videos, probably can relate, but for those of you that haven't, let's say I record a video for an hour, it's gonna take me a minimum of twice that amount of time to edit it. So I generally don't edit the color along videos. I edit a little bit in the beginning just to make sure the intro's good, and then other than that, all of the bloopers, mishaps, anything that happens is generally left in the video. If it's something I really need to edit, I will write down a timestamp on a piece of paper and I will go specifically to that part, fix it, edit out what I need to, and then leave it. So for the most part, most of the footage for the color alongs is fairly raw. It's not very edited. But I really don't like the idea of going out of frame because I know that's not only annoying for you guys, but it's also really annoying for me because I feel so bad and disappointed because I'm trying to show you guys what to do and it's impossible if you can't see it, right? So I need to figure out a way around that. I think since her hair is so repetitive, I'm not too worried about it for this part. So let's go ahead and zoom in and I'll keep kind of brainstorming ways that I can not mess up. Not mess up the videos. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in. You guys should already have the colors and materials you need. I will have them listed in the beginning as always. So we're gonna start off with the pumpkin orange, and this is just gonna be like a light base. That's all we're gonna do with this one. We're just gonna lightly base everything. I hope that piece by her face is hair and not feather, but I guess it would work okay as either one. Apologies if you can hear my stomach gurgling. Coffee is about all I've given my stomach today, so it's a little bit angry at me. Just don't really have much of an appetite in the mornings. Okay, stomach, you hush. So this one thing I didn't really consider here when we colored these spots. Did we? Sorry, I'm just gonna move this for a sec. Okay, so this spot and this spot we colored as the background of the sky. So this one is gonna be hair, and this is gonna be a cloud coming out of the hair. That's what I've decided. I mean, that technically could be hair too, but we'll just leave it, I think. Oh, she looks good already. I think brown is the way to go for this. Okay, so that is probably it for the pumpkin orange. Let's start on this section here, I think. I think if we keep her there, we should be good. Okay, so I'm going to start with the light umber. I'm basically just going to use this to kind of figure out where the shadows are going to go. So I'm just going to lightly start placing this in here. Now, normally I like to do kind of dark at the ends of the hair on both ends, but we don't really have a lot of room here, and this probably wouldn't be dark anyways. This would probably more be the center of the hair, so we're not really going to worry about that. We're just going to kind of blend out this way. Switch to the dark brown, same thing. We're just going to lightly throw that color in there. And then my hopes is we can just use the dark umber. I don't generally like using the black because it kind of, it grays things out, for lack of a better way to put it. I think the dark umber will be plenty dark enough, and if we really want to darken up certain shadows, then we can add the black if necessary. So I'm not fully burnishing this in, but I am putting a little bit more pressure. I'm going to really get that dark umber in there and fade it out. We just need the dark umber kind of near the shadowed areas. I think we are going to use the black a little bit though. And that's just going to be at the very, very ends. Again, just in like the really dark places. So I think in this area would be a little bit darker. And then down here would probably be a bit darker. So I'm just going to darken up the very ends and then fade that out into the dark umber. We're going to switch back to the dark umber. And now we can start burnishing a little bit, fade it out. I want her hair to be fairly dark, but still have some decent highlights to it. So it's going to be a little bit of trial and error to figure out how much of the shadow colors we need. Might as well do this random little strand up there too. Okay, so next is the dark brown. So I'm going to go in a little bit heavy, kind of go over the dark umber and bring the dark brown out a little bit. And fade it out. We don't want to go too dark in this section. We still want the light areas to be able to show, even if it's just a little bit. Okay, next is light umber. We're going to bring this over top and out just slightly, and then we're going to fade it off. We'll try and leave a little bit more highlights on these areas here since we have a little bit more room. This one we'll just color in fully. And these ones up here, we might as well just go ahead and color in pretty much fully. They're not fully burnished, I'll still burnish them with the putty beige, but don't really have a lot of room there. And then the putty beige as our next one. I'm going to make sure mine's really sharp. So I'm going to start in the lighter area and work my way up and go over everything. So this is going to be our highlight color, and then it's also going to burnish and kind of blend everything together. And I think that looks really good. Okay, I'm happy with this so far. I guess if we wanted to kind of add highlights, let's try this here. I mean, it might wreck it, but we'll see. I'm gonna take the pumpkin orange, and I'm just gonna lightly go over the putty beige, just in a couple spots. Let's see what this looks like here. I don't know about that. I'm not sure I'm a fan. Okay, let's just stick with the putty beige. We'll see if we can kind of get that orange out a little bit. Actually, that's not so bad. Maybe going back over it with the putty beige would be good. I like that. The orange first on its own was a little bit too much. I'm gonna add a little bit of the pumpkin orange to this one up here. I think that looks good. And it'll kind of add a little bit of a play on the sunset colors or sunrise, whatever this is. Because the pinks and the yellows would kind of make like an orangey hue, I would imagine, so that might actually work. All right, we're gonna follow the same steps on this section here. A little bit different this time though, because we are going to be adding our shadows on both ends. Let's just do these ones too. So our light umber is a light color, so we're basically going to bring this out, but to a little bit less than middle on both sides. What I'm kind of doing here is trying to figure out how far I want to bring my darker colors, because where I fade this off, I want that to be a highlight and I don't want to compromise that, so that'll kind of help me figure out how far I can bring the darker colors, although I do admit that I have a really bad habit of always adding too much dark. It usually ends up really good, or ends up not looking as bad, I should say, but never quite the way I plan for it to. Do the same thing with the dark umber. We're just going to fade it out slightly before the light umber, or dark brown I meant. And this doesn't have to be neat or anything. Just kind of blocking in colors here. And we're going light enough that we can always change it if need be. Alright, let's start going in with the dark umber here. So we're going to start by just like little bits in the tips. Make sure you're fading it out. So I'm going in with a fairly heavy pressure, not fully burnishing it, but enough to get a really good coverage in there, and then fading it out, basically letting off the pressure and just kind of making that color disappear eventually. Okay, I think that looks pretty good so far. We are going to add a little bit of black, a little bit in this area here, just at the very edge, a little bit in these two, and then actually a little bit by the butterfly here as well, and then maybe these ones right here. I think that's good for that. We'll go in with our dark brown now. The dark brown and the dark umber look very similar, the barrels, so definitely make sure that you're double checking. Because I've almost picked up the wrong one a couple times now. comfy though? Hi. You're so cute. She's got a little cardboard box on the entertainment stand that they love to sleep in. Her especially, she's always there. I'm just going to grab my dark umber quick and put a little bit here because I noticed I forgot to on that strand somehow. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the light umber. Kind of going over all of the dark areas and then fading it out, trying to leave enough color to blend in with the putty beige and also leave enough of a highlight area. See, kind of here you can tell the difference. I just kind of did like a sudden stop and just lightly faded out, but not enough. So you can see this color stops right here. You can tell exactly where it stops. Whereas on this one, you can't really tell. You can tell that the light umber is in here, but you can't really tell exactly where it stops. It's somewhere in here, but hard to see. So if you just add a little bit of a light pressure to that and fade it out a little bit more, then that gives you that gradient, that fade that you kind of want, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people still struggle with blending and shading colors. And unfortunately, as easy as the concept actually is, it's hard to explain. And I think when people try to explain it, it ends up sounding more complicated than it actually is. I think the only complicated thing about trying to blend and shade is the pressure, knowing how much pressure you need. I think that's all just kind of trial and error. I think I'm just going to lightly go over all of these shadows too, because I don't think I want her hair to be super, super light. Okay, we're going to go in with the putty beige. Just double check that we're in frame for the most part. Okay. Again, we're pretty much going to go over the whole entire area. All right, we'll go in with our pumpkin orange and just kind of pick out a couple strands to add the orange to. I think those ones are probably good. I don't want to go too overboard. And then back over top with the putty beige. I do like that. It does give a little bit of like more dimension to her hair. And we start all over again. It's going to be very, very repetitive. I might even not speed it up, but maybe like put some music over top, because I'm gonna run out of things to say. And then I could listen to music too. I don't know though, we'll see. Maybe not. Kind of like the relaxing of the quiet as well. I think that's pretty good there. It's unfortunate the sun disappeared. Hopefully the lighting's okay. Alright, let's go in with our dark umber and start placing in our shadows. I think I'm even going to use the dark umber to kind of go over the black lines too. And that will kind of help make her hair appear dark as well. Or darker, I should say. And that'll kind of give that kind of streak look too. So I'm not going to bother with the outsides by the clouds, because you would just have to go over those again anyways, but it kind of makes her hair stand out a little bit because that putty beige really like lightens it. The line work, I mean. So yeah, that makes a bit of a difference anyways. All right. I know I moved the paper a bit. I'm just going to double check that we're still in frame and grab a sip of coffee. Kind of playing around with the idea too of just doing the feathers in like kind of gray, very light gray, like white almost. Keep it like really neutral, and then have the pinks and the yellows as kind of like the only, well, I guess, and the slight blue. It's like the only colored features, like accent colors, I guess. I don't know. that's probably good for the dark umber. And then for the black, we're just gonna add a little bit kind of underneath the butterfly clip here. And then kind of in this area. I think that's probably good. Alright, so in with the dark brown. Don't know how light I want this kind of hair behind the feather to be. We're going to add like a little bit of the dark brown just like right above the feather to give it a little bit of shadow, and then the rest maybe we'll do a little bit lighter. So now in with the light umber. Again, I'm just also going to lightly go over all of the highlights too with this. And this little one back here, I'm just going to color that in because that's going to be pretty dark. Okay, let's see here. We do this one here, And this one, and maybe this long one here. Will that be enough? Actually, let's do this one here too. Okay, yeah, that looks good. I like that. And we'll go back over top of those with the putty beige. And then I'm just going to grab the dark umber, and again I'm going to go over the line work with this a little bit just to bring the lines back out. Bless you. Reed sneezed. These are different hair strands here. There we go. Maybe that looks better, I'm not sure. I think it's a good call with the brown hair, especially with the freckles, because I think it's just going to look really cute. What do you guys prefer to repetitive parts like this? Would you rather it, you know, just be left in real time with music, left in real time with just like the original sound, even if I'm not talking? Sped up? I mean, I know for the sake of like uploading videos and stuff, sped up is always a little bit better because that lowers the video size quite a bit. But I'm not gonna lie, when I'm coloring, even if the person isn't talking or if there's music playing, I still would rather it be in real time, because when it's sped up, I feel like I'm coloring too slow and then I rush through it. And then it's also just kind of easier to see where they're putting colors too, especially if they're not explaining. She's so cute. I adore her. I'm so excited to see her finished. And I'm like mad that I put her off for this long. Not that I wanted to, I just didn't have the time until now. I've actually been on vacation. I had 11 days off and I've only got, well, if we're counting today, today's Thursday, so 3 days if we're counting today. They've gone by way too fast and I'm so not looking forward to going back to work at all. I don't think I could ever get bored at home. I mean, maybe. Bored to a certain extent, I think, but I'm sure I could always find something to do. I mean, realistically, my problem is finding time for stuff, actually. So, probably definitely wouldn't be bored. I think this is hair right here. This isn't the feather, so I'm just going to go ahead and color that in a little bit. Still good. Paranoid, guys. On the plus side, we upgraded a while ago from a squeaky office chair to rolly chair, so that's cool. It's still annoying, but not quite so obvious. Alright, in with the light umber. Let's lay down some shadows. It's also good for me to double check that we're in frame and also make sure that we're still recording, because I think worse than not being in frame is when my phone stops recording or something happens and I don't notice. I've never had it happen with this phone that I can think of, knock on wood, but my other one used to do it all the time, especially because it would only record 30 minutes at a time for some reason for video. This one I think will go pretty much until it dies. Tummy, you hush. I think that's most, if not all, of the shadowed areas. Hopefully. Can't quite tell. Alright, we're going to switch to the dark brown now. This one, unfortunately, I don't know if it's like this for all pencils or if it's just my set, but this one is not as soft as the dark umber, so nice thing about like the really soft ones is the tooth picks that pigment up so nicely that you don't really have to work too hard to get that color in there. But the dark brown is a little bit harder. It's not as soft, so you can't push super hard because you'll wreck the tooth. But if you want to get a good coverage, you've really got to kind of layer and go over and over. I mean, there's definitely pros and cons to both, because ones like this that are a little bit harder are my favorite to use for burnishing, because if you try and burnish with one of the softer cored ones, it's almost impossible. I don't even feel hungry. You ever get where your stomach just gurgles for no reason? Mine's usually loud after I eat, but sometimes just randomly as well. as always, try to leave highlights wherever you can, while still having your colors faded out enough that they're blending nicely together. If you can't fit all of the colors in there, that's okay. Because even if I had to color, let's say, the strand in with the light umber will still act as a highlight. The highlight does not always have to be the lightest color. It's actually better if it isn't, because then, again, it adds more dimension. Okay, so this one right here, see how like sudden that stops? I'm gonna fix that just by fading it out a little bit nicer. There we go. Alright, the light umber is next. This is another one that's a little bit softer, so I do like this one. Again, with this one, I'm going to lightly go over the highlights as well. A lot of these, there's not really enough room for leaving a super light highlight, so I'm just going to lightly go over them with the dark umber, and then the putty beige will still lighten it up a little bit. Okay, I don't think I like this one that light, so let's go in with the dark umber. Sorry, light umber. Kind of color that in a little bit, that's better. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my dark umber, and again I'm going to go over the lines a little bit, try and bring them back out. Carefully go over the ones, her face as well, and then her eyebrow, we can do that one too. not going to really worry about lines that kind of cross with the feathers. Not that very many of them do, but there are a couple. Because we'll have to just go back over after the feathers anyways. Realistically, I would probably leave this until everything's colored anyways, but I am impatient. I also forgot to do this part, and I don't really want to go back over with the putty beige, so let's see if we can just very, very lightly, very, very lightly kind of match in the color here. Yeah, I feel like that's good. Okay, we're gonna start here. That way I'm not like rubbing the browns into each other. So I'm gonna start with our light umber. This is another area where we're not really gonna have room to do like a highlight in the middle. So it's gonna start off dark and then it's just gonna kind of fade off lighter. I do want to have a fair amount of highlight, but we'll see what we can do. So that was the light umber. We're going to switch to the dark brown. Again, just blocking in our colors. There is this strand of hair here. We kind of want to leave that alone. We'll try and make that light if we can. Just so you can kind of tell that it's in front of this section of hair that we're coloring right now. Oh. Alright, there's those ones. We are going to add a little bit of black here. We don't have room for a whole lot, but pretty much everything in underneath this section of hair we want a little bit darker. So I'm just going to go underneath that with the black and just lightly fade it out. And then we can go back to the dark brown. Again, this one you kind of have to be a little bit more patient with to get the color out of it that you need. Just going to lightly go over all of the highlights. And then we'll go in with our putty beige. I'm just gonna go in with the dark brown on this little one. I'm gonna fade it out. And then I'm just gonna color that in with the putty beige. Yeah, there we go. We're gonna take the pumpkin orange. I'm just gonna color in a couple sections here. So maybe this one, and let's do this farther one here. I am gonna go over those with the putty beige. Okay, and then we're gonna use the dark umber and bring out those lines. Give me 1 second. My mama just texted me, so I'm just gonna make sure it's not super important or anything. We'll do this section here next. So start color blocking with our light umber. And we're gonna go in with our dark brown. I think I'm gonna do this section of hair a little bit different than I normally would. Only because it always turns out super dark. So we have like this kind of curl of hair that comes down, and this is already dark. So if we make all of this dark too, it's gonna kind of blend in. And then also because there's not a whole lot of room on these little strands. So I think I want to make them, there'll still be a little bit of a shadow, but I'm not going to go as dark as I normally would, I think. Oh, and I think I colored, that's part of her shirt, so let's not color that in. Okay, so let's go in with our dark umber, and we're just going to be very tedious with where we place our shadows. Just going to put that right there. Sharpen the pencil. Okay, so we want it kind of dark coming out of here for sure. And we want it kind of dark behind this feather. And then we'll definitely have it darker coming out from behind her neck for sure. A couple of these strands that kind of end at the bottom to make a little bit darker too. this one too. Okay. I'm gonna forget about under this part of the feather too. There we go. All right, so I think that's good for the dark umber. So let's switch to the black. And this, I think I'm just gonna kind of concentrate in behind her neck here. Don't need a whole lot, just a little bit to darken up that color a little further. And then we'll switch in with the dark brown. We're going to start on this side here. And again, we're just bringing it out from that darker color and fading it out. This one will go up a little bit too. And this one I'm just going to do the very, very tips of down here, and I'm going to leave these two alone. And this one we're going to bring up a bit. I want it to be fairly dark here, so this strand of hair directly under the feather, I've just colored that all in, and then this one will make a little bit lighter. And the same thing, anywhere we've put the dark umber, we are just going to go over top of that and fade out with the dark brown. The strands that we're going to go a little bit lighter on, we can bring the dark brown out a little bit further. I wouldn't go too dark with it, but you can bring it out a bit further. Okay, under here, we're going to come off with the dark brown, fairly dark at the top, and then fade it out rather quick. And then we'll switch to our light umber. Let's sharpen this one too. And it broke on me. And there we go. So again, anywhere we put those shadows, we're just going to go over top and fade it out. Areas like this where we've left it, that's going to kind of be like more of an ombre effect. We do just lightly want to go over those highlights too though, because we don't want them to be too light. We want them to match the rest of the hair. think that looks good. Let's go in with our putty beige. And again, this one's gone over pretty much everything. Alright, let's pick out a couple strands for the pumpkin orange. So I'm going to go with this one. I think those ones look pretty good. I'm just going to go back over one slightly with the light umber. And then the dark umber. And I meant putty beige. Goodness. Goodness. I think I said light umber. And I said something umber, but it was neither. How long have we been recording? I think we're not doing too bad. I think this and the first part will be fairly matched. So that's cool. I thought the hair would take much longer, but again, smaller page, so it's not going to take nearly as long as most pages. Let's see, light umber, we're just going to color block here. I think for this one I kind of want to do the same as this, because again, these are like very small strands. So I think pretty much everything coming out from behind her arm, it's gonna be a little bit darker on top, and then we'll leave them lighter at the bottom. This one will be an exception. That one will kind of do both ends on. Should we just do all of this in one go? Maybe not, let's just stick to this section, and then we'll do the last one. Okay, so it's probably good for the light umber. We'll switch to the dark brown. And then the dark umber we can go a little bit deeper with. I'm going to do like the very, very tips of this strand with the dark umber. I don't want it to be too dark. Enough to have a little bit of a shadow, still leave some room for the highlights, because again, with how light her arm is, this hair especially, it's like right up front. This is the closest to us, her shoulder. This hair is just slightly behind her shoulder, but it's the closest to us. So it's going to be a fair bit lighter than the hair that's kind of further back, especially like back here. Hopefully that makes sense. And then also, since it's closer to us, even though it's kind of coming out from behind her shoulder, we're not going to add any black to these sections. Oh, there's a puppy somewhere that is not happy. It's not mine. Mine, I think, is sleeping outside my door. Make sure we're in frame. Okay, we're good. Alright, so in with the dark brown. Little tiny bits on the strand. And we're not going to bring it too far down on these ones either. Just enough to get the color in there, because even though we want these sections of hair to be a little bit lighter, we also don't want them to look different or too different from the other sections of hair that we've done. Otherwise, it's just going to look like two completely different hair colors, and that's going to look funny. So I'm going to fade this down still, I think. Just a little bit lighter than I have been. That way the putty beige still mixes a little bit with the light umber, but it's a little bit lighter than it has been. All right, putty beige it is. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and with the pumpkin orange, slightly go over some strands here. Back over with the putty beige. And then the dark umber. Bring out those lines again. And there we go. Now I just have one small section of hair left. All right, light umber. Oh, excuse me, guys. Sorry. Now these are kind of like weird hair. That's part of why I was leaving this for last. I don't really ever know how to color the hair when it's like this, but I think we're just going to stick to how we colored it at the top, and you know, wherever it ends, that's going to be a shadow, and our highlights will be in the middle. Because that is the only way I know how to do hair like this. I mean, technically this would be a highlight, this would be a highlight, and this would be a highlight. The rest would mostly be in shadow, I think. I don't know. Maybe? I'm just gonna pretend I know what I'm talking about like I usually do. Alright, dark brown. That's not dark brown, that's dark umber. Dark brown, here we go. I don't quite know how far I want to bring these shadows out, so I'm more just like putting the dark brown towards the ends of the tips. That way our colors will match because we've done that for all of the other sections, but I can extend it out a little bit further once I have a better idea what this is going to look like. Alright, again I'm going to sharpen this guy. I'm going to do the smaller sections, I'm just going to do the very tips, fade them out. You know, there's so many different ends here that I am most likely probably going to miss a couple. And that's totally okay. But the ones I notice, I will throw some shadows at. I think that looks okay. Do we want to add black? Yes. Yes, we do. But it's just going to be in here. We don't need a whole bunch, just a little bit. Maybe a little bit up here as well. Which is probably a good thing we did that. I'm just going to quickly grab my dark umber again. I totally forgot this strand. I don't know how I managed that. Weird. Okay. So dark brown is up next. This one's a weird strand of hair. I think I'm gonna like bring the shadow down slightly to about here. I'm not like fully coloring it in, but I'm fading it down that far. So I'll mix the light umber in there so it doesn't look funny, hopefully. Just little tiny bits to these ones. I'd like to have a little bit of a lighter highlight on those if we can. Maybe a little bit of shadow here too. Okay, I like that. So light umber is next. These ones I'm just going to kind of lightly color in. We'll go over them with the putty beige, but they're not going to be super light pieces of hair anyways because they're kind of behind her face a little bit. So we'll just kind of pop the light umber in pretty much everywhere, but make sure we fade it out where we can to leave room for the putty beige. All right, so back in with the putty beige. I guess not really back in, it's the first time on this section, but you know what I mean. Okay, good. We're still recording. What's up, Spaz? What was that? Oh, okay. Just gives me this look like mind your business. Back to sleep. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So we're gonna go in with the pumpkin orange. Put in a couple orange highlights. I think that's probably good. I'm gonna go lightly back over those with the putty beige. And then lastly, in with the dark umber. Bringing those lines back out. Any lines beside anything we haven't colored yet, you don't have to worry about. Or I wouldn't worry about anyways. For two reasons. One, if you color in that line with the dark umber and then you go and color beside it, you have a chance of contaminating whatever you're coloring with the dark umber. This is a pretty dark color, so you probably don't want that. And then also because you have to go back over it anyways after you color that thing, so it's a little bit redundant. There, and there's her hair done. Jeez, an hour and a half just to do hair. That's a little bit crazy. She looks so good so far. I really can't wait to finish her. We don't have much left at all. I don't even think we're gonna need a fourth part. So this very well could just be a 3-part series. And then I don't know, we just might have one Friday where we don't have anything posted. Because my plan actually is to kind of change things up. I always tried to kind of hide the color alongs from you so you guys wouldn't see what they would look like, but I'm going to change that up. I'm actually going to start posting the speed color at the beginning of the month, so like the first Friday. And I'll also post the finished page in the group, that way you guys can see what it looks like, and then you can decide then if you want to join or not. So normally what I would do is I would post part 1 on the first Friday of the month, and then every part after, and then I would post the last part plus the speed color together on the last Friday of the month. So I think for future what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the first part and the speed color together on the first Friday, but if this is only a 3-part color along, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to post the time-lapse version first, and then the next one probably won't be until the next Friday after, just so I have something coming out on every Friday because that's my plan. I want to have one video per week coming out, so that will make it so that happens. But if I do that way, I will try to remember to put something in the time-lapse version, so keep an eye on that. That way you know when to expect the first part. I will also put it in the community tabs, most likely too. But yeah, we're gonna leave that there so this video isn't super long. This will definitely be the longest part in this color along. I hope you guys are enjoying. Hopefully you guys like the colors we've picked so far. I think she's going to turn out looking super cute. Hopefully you guys are as excited as I am. Can't wait to get her finished and especially put those final touches on her to really bring her to life. We got plans. So anyways, I will hopefully see you guys in part 3. As always, take care and hopefully I'll see you next time. Alright guys, bye!
Stars fall at my feet, keep me grounded as I reach higher than I see. Is there something there for me?